Hi everyone, welcome to this podcast with Rich and Vimal. We'll be sharing some of our experiences, inquiries, reflections around our spiritual journey for the last many years. And both of us are also spiritual facilitators accredited with Open Hand and would be speaking from some experiences of working with other people as well. So every week or every podcast session, we'll have some few topics to share. And it will be spontaneous. It will be like a conversation, I suppose. Is there anything you might add, Richard?
Yeah, I think it's just important that we keep everything authentic, right? We already spoke about that, and we'll see how it goes with the flow. We have an idea about what we might want to talk about, but yeah, I think to be most aligned with the flow with the Taurus, we need to be as spontaneous as possible. So we're just going to see where this is going to go.
Ah,
Yeah.
beautifully said.
Yeah.
Yeah. So both of us were sharing and speaking a lot about success and failure. So I thought we could begin with that topic. And I've been having a lot of contemplations and inquiries around this topic based on my life and others I see as well. So something really beautiful landed for me recently, which I wanted to share. First of all, if I think about success, I think it's important to say it is really, it depends on each individual. You can't say this is success and everybody should be thinking like this, and this is failure and this is how everybody should be thinking about it. It is subjective to every individual who has their own view about life, how they see life, what they expect from it, what motivation they have. So you could say, for example, if somebody is quite materialistically oriented about life and they value material abundance and you know uh, their job, career achievements, and all of these things, then they might see success in some worldly view. And if you are somehow spiritual and have touched authentic qualities, deep qualities like peace and bliss and all of that, then it's easy to associate that with success. And you could have a mix of both these experiences. Somebody might be saying it is having, a peaceful, happy life, at the same time having enough comfort and security in my life. And all of that is right to the specific individual. So, but I wanted to expand it out and see it in a macrocosmic picture, what success means really. And what landed for me is the Taurus, or the flower of life. The soul in each of us is yearning to succeed. Quite simply, is yearning to succeed and is yearning to unleash and express itself in its most aligned form, you know. And when it does that, it is going to create harmony within and outside. And this is happening not just in individual souls, but happening in the highest fractal. You can see in the universe, it is moving towards enlightenment or nirvana, uh, to the aligned version of itself. And it is happening in different factors like the galaxy or the solar system, which is moving towards ascension, and the earth, which is in a shift ascension process, which is moving towards this alignment. And the same happens to every individual. So when you are in touch with this aligned Taurus, aligned frequency within, then it is going to create harmony within and outside. And on the inside, it could be felt as sense of homecoming and deep peace, relaxation or creativity, passion, these sort of things, and connection with soul family and twin flame within. And that is going to reflect on the outside as aligned relationship, the place that we live that is more closely associated with our vibration, and the people that we connect with, and the things that we do might be oriented more with our passion, let's say. But when this happens, it's easy for the identity or the ego to think, okay, it's about that, really. It's about the aligned relationship. It's about the money I achieve. It's about the follower that I might get. It's about the client that I might attract with my passion. It's so easy to associate, just like we associate the person as the twin flame rather than the feeling connection within. So then we see, you know, people trying to achieve that by disconnecting oneself from their aligned Taurus and going to chase that, which paradoxically disconnects from, at least in my opinion, true success, which is the wholesomeness of this. And one more uh, one more complexity with this phenomena is that we are living in a, let's say, simulation matrix which projects all of these ideas, beliefs, success, values, desires, needs, wants we might need or have, um, through social media, through YouTube, through family, friends, even people closely associated with us, to see this as the aligned worldview, and we should be doing that. And if we are not conforming to that, then somehow we have failed. And if we are doing that, somehow we have succeeded. So it takes, I feel, a lot of courage at this point to, really stay centered in one's value system. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I wanted to share.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. All right, podcast over. Yeah, I totally resonate with it. And I think one of the main things that I'm getting from what you're sharing is that everybody should really define what success means to them personally. But of course, there's a difference between um, if you're orientated towards something that is going to be achieved from the outside, like as you said, a certain financial status, or even the security, the emotional security of being in a relationship or having a family, or these kind of things. Um, there's a difference there between orientating your feeling of success to that and orientating to something more around the inside. And so if we can orientate more to the inside, then we automatically have more, do I want to use the word control over that? It's something that's more within our grasp to attain, I would
Mhm.
say.
Okay.
The orientation to outer success is we can say much more fragile in the way that it can come and go. So if you're okay with that, then fine. But I think the orientation towards inner success is something that can be a lot more permanent if it's attained. And yeah, the other thing that I wanted to reflect on is a word that you mentioned a couple of times, which is harmony.
Hmm.
And I imagine that people will have a different understanding about what harmony means. And I just wondered what your understanding of what harmony is.
Well, harmony, in my sense, is a sense of peace within, at the same time, uh, with those around as well. In our general environment, we are, let's say, we are closely living, closely connected with nature, for example, or with people around, we are being really authentic and honest. Yeah, something happened there.
Mhm.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's important to kind of comment a bit on what can happen on the spiritual journey around harmony, because I know from experience and from hearing from many other people as well that when you first start to come to that inner orientation and you find some of that inner peace, there can sometimes be an attachment to that, right? Or a grasping for it, let's say.
Mm, exactly.
And so your feeling of success might be orientated around that, around trying to achieve this inner state peace
Mm.
or or harmony. And 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 then we realized that, well, actually that's only a kind of a grasping as well, a kind of a feeling of lack. And so the very attempts to try to bring yourself to this inner state of harmony or peace is preventing you from experiencing it. And so there's kind of at that point more of a surrender, a dropping into the natural flow, um, which creates naturally around how you're being, around your authentic being.
Mm.
And so there becomes a different perspective on harmony, you know. Um, it becomes more about a feeling of rightness, I think. That your life doesn't always have to be um, feeling good necessarily. That being authentic and being in the natural torus, in the flow of life, is going to bring up situations which make you feel tight, which make you feel triggered, and then those are also um, to be worked with and experienced.
Yeah, yeah, beautifully said. I think that's an important, you touched on a very important point. I think speaking from personal experience, I think I have seen this quite a bit within myself as well. Because it's so easy to associate success with outside, and then when you see that it's not really about that, and it's not really helping me to achieve inner peace and all, there is a going inwards and then still attaching to the qualities one might find within, like bliss or peace, and then holding on to that, and then feeling that like I have failed when those qualities are not there, feeling like I made a mistake or something, and which sort of builds up perfectionism or an identity, a spiritual identity, let's say. So it's important to come to a balance between these two phenomenon, not to attach to one or the other, but to see success as a constant process of the emergence of our true self through whatever situations uh, we might we might find. And that could be like our work, our life breaking down in front of us, the relationship or the things that we do, breaking that down, and still seeing that process as a success because it is helping me to come to a different, more aligned version of myself, you know. Yeah, to see that process. I remember I went home recently, and I met my neighbor who was a shopkeeper, and he had like a big shop there, and he went into some financial um, cheating, let's say, and lost everything. He lost his shop and had to sell car and all of the things, and went into a depression. And he went into a depression for a year. and did a lot of work around like trauma healing and all of these things. And then it was so easy for people around and society to say, "Oh, you have failed because you have made a mistake with your life. You have lost every, financial aspect, and you lost your job, lost this." But and he came to me to speak once, and only thing that I could do, because maybe there was not an understanding of the spiritual aspect, to hold space for him, to see that what you are going through is actually not failure at all, but it's the process of life itself, because you are creating it for another version to come forth. And then after a year or so, I found him. I met him recently, and he had become a different person, a lot more grounded, calm, have a lot more wise, have a different understanding about life, and then started another shop, in a different place. So I see this beautiful process of a person going through life, having his challenging experience and emerging on the other side, which to me is absolutely success.
Yeah, amazing story. Thanks for sharing. And it really highlights for me as well, that we are attracting and creating depending on how we are being, and depending on our inner state. I think it's important to highlight that, because there is a generalized view in spiritual circles that the law of attraction is there for creating the life of our dreams, for manifesting our desires. And the problem with that, again, like alluded to before, is that if you're coming at life with this orientation, then you are creating still from a sense of lack. And so you can manipulate the law of attraction for a while, um, and yet it doesn't change the inner state and the feeling of lack. And so, again, if you can come to this orientation of creating through letting that natural, authentic expression come through, and then observing what you create around that, then you're going to be getting reflections of both your um, your soul creating, and also, let's call it, the shadow side, the all the areas where you may be identified with something or attached to an outcome, all the areas where you are not fully realized as the source or the one, as a unique expression of that. And so I think it'd be quite a trigger point for many people to hear, I think. And but I think it's a very important topic, and a very profound transformation in the way you approach life. It requires a lot of surrender, I think. And you're muted.
There, I don't know, for some reason something is happening on the out. The neighbor is building something there, which is
That's really funny, because there's a farmer banging around with his tractor right outside as well.
I I I can't really hear that. Here the power is going. I think they are building something, and the power is going like whack, and my
Mm.
light is doing weird stuff, and I'm hearing all sort of noise outside, and I'm really finding it hard to come to a place of sense.
So 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 why are we attracting that?
Yeah, exactly
That's
what I.
that question then, huh?
Yeah. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is to stay centered in the process and attach less to the outcome. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is going to turn out or what.
Right.
But
Right.
uh,
Definitely.
but
Definitely.
really, the process here is to be equanimous with the situation and really centered in the background and still able to coherently express from that place.
Right. Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. Yeah. And I, an extra thing for me as well is reflecting a outer distraction.
Sorry.
It's reflecting an outer distraction,
Uh,
So that's an aside and a personal thing for my own journey as well, to be aware of where distractions come in uh, from that natural flow.
wow. Yeah, I think that's quite important because I've been in a similar journey looking at how distractions affect the soul and how easily we can, sell the soul for those distraction outside. And nowadays, I feel we are living in a place which environment, a system which is ramping up all the distraction through the social media and YouTube and all kind of stuff through the shorts videos,
Hmm.
AI influenced stuff that is happening. And occasionally find myself, let's say, scrolling through this stuff, because it gives you this quick dopamine hit,
Right.
which is actually an aligned natural part of ourselves, uh, which happens from our creative expression or aligned being. But this is manipulating it by feeding us with these dopamine hits, and to really disciplined in the process of not chasing that,
Right.
but staying closely centered to our being.
Conscious scrolling.
Conscious.
You could coin a term, huh? Yeah, I mean, I think when you notice these things, the natural impetus is to go, right, well, then I'm coming off social media. But I think the master level is to be in that and notice what it's doing to you, and like you say, be disciplined in it, and maybe only focus on there is content on social media which is valuable, but it's like searching for a needle in a haystack sometimes.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, it reminds me of something that happened yesterday, actually. So there's this fairground that gets built up near me. It's this massive thing with all these loud rides and things to buy and consume and lots of sweets for the kids and these kind of things. And that gets built up twice a year, and it's this big event. And my partner and her child went yesterday. And her child was asking me, "So are you coming too, Richard?" And I said, "Well, no, I don't think I'm gonna come. It's not something that I feel to it's not an environment that I feel to be in." "Oh, why not?" "Oh, it's really loud, and there's so many people, and all this commercialized stuff, it's not a place that I feel to be." And you know what he said to me? He said, "Yeah, I bet you couldn't meditate there, right?" And it's true. Yeah, I mean, I said to him, "Yeah, I mean, if you can meditate there, then you can meditate anywhere."
beautifully said.
Yeah, yeah. So, it really reminded me of that, even with these states that we're trying to attain uh, through the spiritual work. Um, It can't only be done when everything is peaceful and harmonious.
Exactly.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, well, the main thing that I'm getting from your sharing is it's actually not about the peace or the bliss. It's also about the messy stuff and how much it
Right.
can.
Or finding that like I call it a dual experience, like
Mm.
being in the mess and the chaos and the tightness, but also feeling the part of you that's beyond that
Yeah,
and stable and peaceful or blissful as well. I think it's possible to feel both.
yeah, like being a calm in the chaos.
Right.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think it's also important to add here. I feel is um, in the beginning, at least, maybe to be in an environment that really nourishes your soul compared to an environment that constantly pushes you down through judgments and projections. So we need an environment that naturally reflects our aligned being, those people who are connected with. Otherwise, the soul really can't grow. Within for example, if we plant a seedling in a desert, it is surely going to die off. But if we plant a seedling in an aligned environment and give enough water and sunlight, it is going to grow. And when it grows to some, then it can go through any environment and still thrive.
Right. Right. And that reminds me of that flowers are often blooming when they're put under stress. When when you're when you're cutting the stems or not watering them for a while and then water them again, that's where the flowers are sometimes blooming. And so there's this, yeah, um, they need the right soil, they need the right conditions for sure. Um, and then that gives them or say, let's call it a person. That gives a person, if they're in the right conditions, in the right soil, that gives them the space then to challenge um, the identities, and the spiritual identities, and
Yeah.
because otherwise you're only focused on, well, how can I make this soil better, you know?
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great reflection, for sure. And I think there's probably a lot of people out there who resonate with that. And so the question that comes up with that is, you know, you can accept that maybe you've attracted that situation,
Yeah.
in order to gain a reflection for yourself. And let's say that person has then worked on that and released any attachment to how a situation should be, and worked with any identities around it, processed any karma, and they're still in the situation.
Okay.
So, what point would you say is the point where you say, no more? Like, okay, this feels done for me. Now it's time to move on.
Yeah. I think that really depends on the individual, and uh, I can personally speak from my experience of living with my family for a long time. I think we were speaking at that time, when I
Mm.
was living in Kerala. Now I'm living in Himachal, Bir.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I was having a huge awakening experience back then, going through all the layers, emotional, mental layers around identification with family, being a son, brother, and all these things, and not really following the usual things that is expected. of a family member. You have to go and do a job, you have to behave this way. But I was mostly going against all of those things, and to in the awakening process, and hence where feeling into a lot of judgments and projections coming my way by family, by friends, those around. It was a huge learning experience to see I am beyond all of these judgments, and I have attracted these judgments to learn from that, and not to go into self defense or blame, but to still keep centering myself and find that aligned aspect. And it took a few years, but at some point it became clear that staying anymore in such an environment is not really nourishing my soul, because I've learned enough. I've learned not I wouldn't say I've learned completely, but I've learned enough to go and have a different experience, and maybe come back and have a different perspective about the situation. And that helped hugely. And I could see the reason that I still stay put in those conditions was because of some subconscious fear that I haven't really touched. And to take that leap of faith to go out of the environment or the situation is to touch on that fear as well. And the awareness of that fear helped me, and the commitment to still break through helped me to take that step, go forward, have a different experience, and to be more independent and sovereign in myself. And what
So
I've
had
noticed,
you can I
sorry,
just ask you a question around that?
yep.
Had you already worked through the fear before you took the step? Or did you feel the fear and take the step and process it through along that road?
I think it's a mix of both.
Hmm.
I could touch the fear and I worked through it as much as I can. But also it was clear, if I take this step and change my life in some way, then it was really abundantly clear that fear is going to come up more strongly,
Mhm.
and then would have more opportunity to work with it.
Mm.
So you can't really wait for all of that to complete and then take that next step. At some point, you have to take the
So
leap of faith.
yeah, so what made you make that leap of faith then? What was the motivation behind that?
I think it was uh, a lot of excitement to that step, which is being created ahead of me. At some point, the excitement and the vision of that step manifesting overcame the fear, you know, and which actually helped me to take that step and go beyond.
Mhm. So you're having this kind of, again, this dual experience of feelings, fear on one side, but there's excitement on the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot. I I see that a lot in transformative periods in people's lives. There's very much both feelings involved.
Yeah.
As you know, especially around grieving periods as well. If you're changing a job, leaving a relationship, moving house, there's very often both of these feelings coming up. And I always took that as a sign that I was on the right path.
Yeah. Exactly. Mm. I think it's about self honesty when you find yourself in that situation. To absolute self honesty, to ask oneself, is the situation really serving you? And is there more an aligned version of yourself yearning to come through?
Right.
And what beingness would help that? And this is where I think the peace and the bliss or the contentment is not the best ally in your journey, because you can be content in a situation and not really fuel your soul, you know. So it has other qualities as well, like passion, excitement, as you know.
Right, and it's about finding that balance between um, fueling that passion and the drive and the focus, um, and going in that direction, but then not becoming too focused and fixed on that path, and letting go of attachment to outcomes and just seeing how the flow takes you.
Yeah.
But then you can go back. It's that balance between willpower and surrender, I think. If there's too much surrender, then there can be the danger of inertia
Mm.
and the life not really going anywhere. And if there's too much of that willpower and focus and determination, then um, there's a tendency to lose sight of the bigger picture. Then,
Yeah. Or even beat oneself up, that
Mhm.
that not fully accepting one's situation or experiences, and maybe even criticizing oneself for lack of change or any. So yeah, there is a balance of acceptance, surrender, as well as the passion and commitment drive. Would you share the story that you have told me about going to the waterfall and the change of perspective around success and failure? Because it's
Sure.
really an interesting story. I was
Mhm.
feeling goosebumps listening to that.
Yeah, it was really a huge lesson for me. This happened 2022, I think. So 3 years ago. Or was it 2021? Around that time. And at the time, I'd taken a a year off of work to just focus on um, building an income around facilitation. And so I was creating a lot of content and posting most days, and creating online and in-person workshops and various offerings and courses and these kind of things. And it wasn't seeing a lot of interest. Yeah, interest it was, but the people just weren't signing up and committing to it here and there, but it wasn't enough by any means to keep me going financially. And it led to a kind of a burnout scenario where I just said, "Well, I've had enough. I'm putting so much effort into all of this, and it doesn't seem to be bringing me any success in the way that I'm not getting any clients, and so it's not sustainable for me to keep going." And so I decided to go on a kind of a vision quest where I would take myself off for a few days into the wilderness and camp and meditate and fast. I just took water with me, these kind of things. And I went to this national park that was recommended to me by a friend. And she said, "Oh, you've got to go to this waterfall. It's amazing. You can go bathe there, and I'm sure that it's very hidden, so there's not going to be many people, or if anybody, who comes when you're there, and this kind of thing." So yeah, they resonated with me, and I went there, and I set off with a backpack full of water and camping equipment, and the first thing that happened was I was attacked by this swarm of horseflies. It's these big flies which bite you, and I've never experienced something like that before. That's this swarm around me, And of course, that brought up some tightness. I was waving my hands around, and I was uh, r- running around to try and escape them. So yeah, all of this kind of created this goal orientated mindset in me. I wanted to um, get out of this experience of having all these flies around me and get to this waterfall and find it. And in the process, I completely missed the path and the turning that I was going to take, and ended up somewhere else. And and so I thought, well, I'll just find a place to camp for the night, and then I'll carry on searching tomorrow. And I found this very nice field in the middle of the forest on the side of a mountain, and set up my tent. And 5 minutes later, I heard this engine, and it was this big 4x4 truck driving towards me, and it was one of the park rangers. And he said, "Hey, you can't camp here. It's not allowed in Austria to wild camp, and it disturbs the deer." And so I had to pack up my tent and put it in his van, and he drove me right back to the car park that I started in, um, and gave me a little spot to camp in there. And so there was this feeling a little bit of, gosh, I'm right back at the start of just, what can we say, wasted a day. But that's only when I was coming at it from the mindset of, well, I have to get to this waterfall. So I was thinking then about, well, what is this experience teaching me? And surrendering to the fact that, well, this is where I am now. Um, and I noticed how goal orientated I'd been, and how tight I was around the fly experience. And and so I got up the following morning, and um, went back to the car park that I'd started in, and decided just to follow the flow, not necessarily needing to end up at this waterfall. And um, the flow said, "Stay in the car park." So I waited there for a while, and then this car pulled up, and this old guy got out, and he said something to me which sounded to me, so he spoke in this very Austrian dialect, which sometimes I have trouble understanding. Mostly I can understand, but it sounded to me like, it looks to me like you've been waiting for yourself. Which probably what he really said was, "It looks like you're waiting for me." That's what it sounded like to me. So anyway, we decided to walk together, and he was this Christian guy who was um, explaining to me his beliefs, and in a way that he was trying to convince me of them. But I gave him some challenging questions, and told him my own perspective, and it was a nice conversation, and quite connecting one. And I learned a fair bit from it too. And just when we parted ways, he was really getting emotional, and saying, "Thanks so much for listening." And it was really a nice experience to um, connect with this guy who clearly saw life in a very different way to me, but still we could find common ground and still touch each other in a way. And um, and yeah, at that point, I was fairly close to where I had ended up before on the previous day, and had no problems finding the waterfall that I originally went intended to go to, and set up camp there, away from the away from the eyes of the park ranger. So yeah, what the whole experience taught me was um, how to view success, you know?
Mm.
Um, when I'm viewing it from this attachment to when I have to be here or I have to do that, then I'm giving success is dependent on certain conditions being fulfilled,
Yeah.
outer conditions, you know. Whereas if I orientate my view of success on um, what's being shown to me and what I'm learning from the situation, then I am always winning, basically. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
even when it seems like an outer failure,
Yeah.
there's always a success which can be um, deemed from that.
Mm.
Mm.
No, beautiful, beautiful experience. Yeah, it's beautiful that life had given you such an opportunity to change the belief systems. We have learned from somewhere, and so it feels like a whole of unlearning process.
Right, definitely an unlearning process. I had to change my orientation. You know, the question was changed to, well, what is the universe really trying to show me now?
Hmm. Yeah.
So there was an element of surrender with
Hmm.
that. Yeah.
One question that comes for me is how do you think, or why do you think is we have these rigid belief systems and then we orient our lives around those belief systems? Where do these come from?
That's I'm not sure I can answer that in a simple way. Um, yeah, how far back do you want to go?
I mean, personally speaking, for you, how does that work?
Okay. How have these rigid belief systems been created in me?
Yeah.
Um, well, I think um we can go back to childhood with that
Mm.
because there's an aspect of childhood, or there's a point where as a child um you you gain your identity, or you build up an ego or an identity around the reflections from the outside world and what they reflect to you and how you're being. And so if the outside world is very much orientated towards
Mm.
getting success from the outside, then that's what's going to be, let's say, programmed into you, you know. um it's not taught to children generally, um
Yeah.
that you get success from how things are in the inside. And even, you know, I notice it with children these days, even if the parents are teaching them that, still they're getting other reflections from other family members and from their peers at school, and these kind of things, and still there's doubt in them.
Yeah. Or even
So
society tells them through a whole of different ways, through media, that through channels.
right, exactly, we're bombarded with it, actually. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it becomes very important to um, filter um, what media you're consuming,
Mm.
because even if, you know, I noticed this with me. I when I consume, or when I see or read things which um, I notice are quite distorted in that way, um, I recognize that.
Mm.
And yet, if I if I'm consistently coming back to that way of thinking or being confronted with that reflection, it does seep into the unconscious somehow.
Okay.
And so there definitely needs to be a conscious um, consumption of media, even when you recognize that what you're watching or reading is not aligned with your views and you're just doing it because you're interested to see how other people think.
Okay.
If you're doing it consistently, then it can that consciousness can seep into the psyche.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. From childhood, I think it can build up a lot of childhood identities and teenage identities. I think I had spoken about this in the last podcast I did,
Mm.
like awakening journey in detail. There is that identity, but I think it goes deeper than that to our karmic past lives of through of different experiences, of even spiritual experiences, and the belief systems of how we view life right now
Mm.
is a filter of that karma as well. So there is that karmic filter to work with. And the word that comes to me is sovereignty, to really be sovereign in our Taurus, in our flower of life and the flow of the soul, is to let go of all of those belief system and to moment by moment consciously take the choice of being in our Taurus or flow. And
Right.
so easy to lose sovereignty to all of these external factors.
Yeah. Yeah. It's making that constant conscious choice.
Yeah.
Right. It's constantly coming back to that. And because even even when you um process out certain things and have realizations around um fixed belief systems or habits or these kind of things, there's still the neural programming, and it can still come back
Yeah.
and catch you. So there needs to be a constant awareness of what's my motivation for making this decision now or for acting in this way.
Yeah. 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 So it's a never-ending journey.
Right. And on that point of the never-ending journey, should we call it for the podcast?
Yes, I think I can speak to you for hours, I feel. But I think we should conclude at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. How shall we conclude? I did the intro, you do the conclusion.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you, Mal, for I really had a nice chat, a nice we had some good contemplations, I
Yeah.
think. And yeah, I think if anybody would like to ask any questions to us or make any comments, I guess I I hope I can speak for both of us where we say we're
Absolutely.
certainly open to interacting with people. I don't want this podcast to just be me and you speaking and that's it. I would love to um, involve other people as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if anybody has any comments or questions, then feel free to get in touch with either one of us through our websites. Uh, for me, it's groundedmysticism.com.
And mine it is vimalfreesoul.com. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Rich. It was really fantastic talking to you. I feel people may benefit from what we have shared because we are speaking from our heart, from our own experiences. But more than that, I think this helps me to have a like a stronger viewpoint or inquiry around my own life. So yeah, thank you.
All right. Well then, see you next time.
See you next time, next episode.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye.